There we go.
Got it.
Just for testing. And then what I'll do is at the end of the meeting is when it downloads it.
Yeah.
And then we can turn around, upload it into Dropbox.
Okay. Yeah, the free Dropbox expired because I haven't decided whether I wanted to do a YouTube channel or keep the Dropbox, but I'll figure that out here in the next day or two.
Okay.
I don't know which one's going to be easier to upload to Facebook and Instagram and those things. So,
okay. Work in progress. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it'll get done. It's no hurry.
Correct.
Nah, we got time is on our side.
Yeah. So Gail, who has been the mainstay in my office for, gosh, 26 to 28 years, is retiring today.
Oh, nice.
This is her last day.
Does she have a replacement?
He's decided that he doesn't need to replace her.
Oh, he really wants to shit the bed.
What's her position, Mike? What does she do?
Well, at a time she was the office manager, but she didn't want that responsibility. So she has sat in every position in that office from tech CA. She's the best billing insurance financial person that I've ever had.
Right.
That got to be a little bit too much as she got older. She's 71, and she didn't have enough contact with the patients. So she wanted to go out to the front desk. So that's where she's been for the last 4 or 5 years. So she's kind of being squeezed out.
Yeah.
She wants things to run like they did when I was there. And the young man is not doing that. And she's been butting heads with him. And she does say things like, well, that's not the way Dr. Mike did it. You know, that's not going to go over well.
No, like a turd in a punch bowl.
Yeah, so it's time for her to go. So well, she's the last holdout. So the office is completely different than when I was there, at least team-wise. So it's all his now.
That's good.
Yeah. We'll see.
I mean, you're
not your circus, not your monkey.
Listen, I like to say that I'm not attached to it, but at the same time, I was there so long and it's my legacy. Bothers me. It bothers me that I handed it off to him a year ago at $550 and a ton of money, and he's at $300 and living month to month pay wise. So, it's just I don't know what it's a lesson in. Took him from struggling, taught him for years, left him alone, but with, some, I won't even say guidance, just some overlook, and he did great. And as soon as it was his, I don't know. I don't understand it,
It's a mindset, Mike. It's,
yeah.
I said at our meeting last night, the mastermind, that if you say to somebody, I saw 200 a day, there's really only two answers, right? The person will either say, you can't do that, right? They'll be implying you're a machine or you're cheating, whatever, you're doing something wrong. Or this was my response when I first heard that, wow, show me how to do that.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Or I want to do that. And then decide if you're capable, right? And then create a mindset or continue to do that. And that's still the concern I have for young chiropractor, whatever we use, or people coming out. What is their mindset? So many want to be PTs or feel that modalities and machines and sports and even kids, right? Just doing pediatrics is, the way to go, as opposed to Dr. Sigafus saying, serve more people by serving more people, and become dedicated to that, and then evolve your potential. And that's, the evolution of your philosophy, of your physical ability, your mental ability, all those spiritual, right? All across the board. Yeah. But it's all wrapped under, we even talked about that, the philosophy of chiropractic, which is a philosophy of life. It really shouldn't just be chiropractic. It's a philosophy to live. You can apply it to your marriage,
Yeah.
practice, your parenting, your workouts, your
Right.
all those things, that you're thinking in terms of it's all connected. How do I release interference, and how do I move to the next level?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I live that way, you live that way, Brad lives that way. And when you have somebody for 5 years and it appears that you've gotten that through,
Right.
you know, but you're right. It's not a mindset, is it? It's a lifestyle. I mean,
Correct.
it's a core principle. And I think I had him at mindset and it never went much farther than that. So, you know, will he continue to serve at a level higher than most? Yeah, probably. You know, Brad's heard me say this before. If you give me somebody that's not strong in the philosophy, but I can teach them a good, what do you want to call it? A good flow, a good policy, a procedure. I can get them to close to 300, and they can stay there. But they'll never go any farther than that without a good sound philosophy. And it works the other way too. You know, if I have somebody with a good sound philosophy, kind of like I did, I'll see over 300 a week, but there's a hole in my bucket just because I don't have any good sound structure, right? And then you taught me policy and procedure, and man, I went, you know, 500, 600, 800, whatever,
Right.
you know. Yeah, I'm just, it's personal, you know, so you lose sight of that, I guess. So yeah, like I said, like Brad said, not my circus, not my monkey, but
It
I'm
was
here.
your circus and was your monkeys, and that's
Yeah,
why it hurts.
yeah,
I
yeah,
get that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we have to
So-
remember our legacy is who we are, not
Exactly.
Right,
not that a practice. That
right,
it was
right.
just, it was a part of who we were,
Yep.
are, however that is, and that's
Yeah,
it's a big deal. I understand. Yeah, it's a tough thing to, but if you don't let it go,
yeah.
yeah,
I know. Listen, I don't lose sleep over it, but I wouldn't be who I am if it didn't bother me, you
True.
know?
right,
It's like that patient, you know, you say you're the patient that you've done everything that you're supposed to do, you know, day one, day two, the philosophy, you do exactly what you know you're supposed to do, and they don't accept care. Well, you know, honestly, the best thing to do is to say next and spend energy on those next people. But the
right,
reality is, as I lay my head on the pillow that night, I still feel pretty shitty about the fact that they didn't accept care,
right,
right? And that makes us who we are. Otherwise, we wouldn't follow up. We wouldn't do the things we were supposed to do.
correct. Right.
But you are right, Terrence. My legacy is who I am. I mean, I still read chiropractic. I love chiropractic. I'm just not down there pushing on spines anymore.
We know this is how our
Okay.
legacy continues.
Right.
Our legacy goes on by sharing our experience and our wisdom and our knowledge to the masses, and those
Agree.
that will pick it up, and the ones that
Yeah.
don't say next.
Here's an interesting kind of tangent to that. Because I haven't been in the office solid for a year. Prior to that, you know, you guys know it was on and off, a day a week, a day a month, or whatever. And when I find myself in groups of chiropractors, and there are the ones that say that I'm going to die over the tables, right? Okay, I if that's what you want to do, I mean, that's not who I am. But what I'm finding is that they're cooling towards me. Is that the right word?
Huh. Yeah.
You
Yeah, I've
know,
heard that reaction.
yeah, they're
That
cooling.
you're not
towards me.
dedicated to the craft and to the profession
Yeah,
because you're not in the front of the table. But
right, right.
look at your uncle. Your uncle served more people through chiropractic
Not
and,
at the
and
tables,
probably
right?
was out of practice longer than he
Yeah.
was in practice.
Yeah, and I shake my head, and you know, to be quite honest, it doesn't bother me. It confuses me to some degree, because we're talking about some guys that I have probably coached for 5 or 10 years. So I don't know if there's a disappointment, there's a jealousy. I don't know what it is, honestly. But I know, Terrence, you're not in the office as much anymore, and I'm interested to find out, you know, in the next few months or years, if you don't notice some of that. I even get it from friends that weren't in chiropractic that are still working. So it's odd. It's an odd thing. So I'm not quite sure figured out what that is yet. But
I think that so in probably my exposure will be the mastermind that I'm in, at least in that particular group right now. I still have respect,
yeah,
but I also preface everything with, I'm not there full time anymore, or I'm not there. Well, I'm there one day a week, or when it's no days a week, I'll preface it with that.
yeah,
And I'll be clear that no, I stepped away for my whatever physical, mental, whatever reasons, just or it was my time to do so. And because of planning, I was able to do so, or I'm able to do
absolutely.
so, those sorts of things. So any insight I share with you will be rooted in 40 years of practice and
Yeah,
this, but to be clear, I'm not between the tables anymore, or I'm, I think if you preface it with that, then run with it, so if you have
yeah,
to, and they should know that, but you may have to remind
The
these people
principles
of it,
stay the
that you're not,
same.
like, I think all of us, or I for myself, didn't appreciate sometimes people, I would use the term, who would pontificate about how it used to be, that was different versus here's what here's what I did in that situation when I practiced. And I'm clear that people, more than ever, I think people are somewhat different now. The times are different, etc. However, having a philosophy and having procedures, even if the procedures need to change for this time, if we're to use that, so to speak, okay. But so here's the procedure, so okay, I used a travel card. Now you have to use a computer. Great. But, when someone tells me it takes them, 9 minutes to do a soap note, I'm like, well, what are you writing?
yeah, yeah,
For instance, and you're always going to have to charge a gazillion dollars to make a living, because that means you can only see 4 people an hour, and whatever, it's
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
hard. So I think if you preface it with that, Mike, that'd be my only suggestion. Same,
yeah.
same,
It's
same
funny.
thing.
I feel like I am. So we'll attempt that even a
Yeah.
little more. So
The procedures and the principles stay basically the same, but the way we communicate is different than what we did when we first were in practice, but the basic foundation is the same. So there's still a lot for younger doctors to learn. If someone takes 9 minutes to do a soap note, first of all, they should have a scribe. So they're not doing that. So they're focusing on taking care of the patients. So they don't have to spend the time. They got to weed down their EHR so that they can get what they need in a shorter period of time. And that's very possible to do that. But I think about one thing that Will Tickle said to me years ago, and he goes, what other people think of me is none of my business. Because I know what I know. And if you want to learn from what we have, then that's great. If not, then find someone that does move you.
yeah, I get that.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
So that sparked a thought in my head then. So if we think about, let's think about chiropractic as the science, the art, and the philosophy of those three things. What one do you think has changed and has not changed?
Well, on the science front, there's been a huge thrust towards the brain, right? Towards that aspect. I'll say the neuro, but there's different layers of it. Anything from it, I'll say it probably began with Carrick, and then the neuro, and now there's so many offshoots, so to speak, from that. It's all driven by, pain to brain, or all these people who hijacked the neuro, and kind of. I remember your uncle Mike, who somebody must have shown him the blind spot mapping, and even he ran with that a little bit. You can adjust and make differences in the, and yet he didn't know how. It didn't know how it worked, other than, well, the adjustment works. And that's what I mean, where the science has changed, where people want to have more, we'll say, more understanding of it. but it is layered, right?
Yeah.
And then in the philosophy, they're linking it again then more to brain, right? They're not seeing subluxation as the entity as it is. There's, so many of them now. Carrick started this, some of these other ones, like, well, the subluxation isn't the thing, it's the brain. And I have a real challenge with that, because the subluxation is bigger than that. As Mike, you might know the best in this group, it's bigger than that. And we have to think of, yes, the brain, just like we call the gut the second brain.
Yeah.
The spine itself is an organ as well, and a functioning integrator, but whatever it might be. So the subluxation isn't just, quote, brain based. It is its own thing. And when
it is.
And when you release that interference, that's why our intent and our technique, all these things become bigger than just the brain. And then I think the art, it's nice to see there are some techniques coming back, or people trying to develop things like that. I think it's Syntropy, and there's a couple other ones that are being respective, that the adjustment is a physically demanding thing, and there should be ways to make it easier on their practitioner or become dedicated. And it's not personality based, i.e., the Thompson technique or somebody's name on it. It's like, no, these are just good ways to position your body to do that. And Carrick, even a couple of these other guys have it where it's not named. It's just, here's a good neurologic way to do it. Easier on your body. Specific, right? It's kind of like Gonstead or all those sorts of things. So I think those are the things I see that's changing.
I've had, through the years, I've had patients call and ask if I did what technique that I practiced in the office, and the team was always told him that he practiced the Martin technique.
Yeah.
Right, which consisted of Thompson and Gonstead and HIO and whatever. But they, I had my king and my aces and my kings and my jacks. Some things I used more, but I was always smart enough to move on to something else. And they all kind of molded into whatever I felt under my hands and Innate told me to do. So I guess as far as things evolving, I think they're going to evolve for everybody, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
How about you, Brad?
I see the science and the art has evolved quite a bit since we first started.
Right.
But the philosophy is the philosophy, that there's a universal intelligence in all things, and the expression of that intelligence through matter is life. Yeah. So that doesn't change. And to just because it was first published in 1927 doesn't mean it doesn't apply today.
What's that? The major premise?
Yeah, in Stevenson's text.
Yeah,
right.
That was spoken long before that, but yeah,
exactly. But my feeling is that the understanding of science has only validated the chiropractic principles. Learning from stuff that Murphy taught on disafferentation and cerebral spinal flow. And Terrence, you're much more educated in that than I am. But from my understanding is that our job is still to remove the interference to the expression of that fullest potential. And that's why the adjustment is critical to what we do, and removal of the subluxation.
Yeah.
And Gentempo and Kent used to talk about in their On Purpose tapes all the time. If we lose our lexicon, if we lose our language, then we lose our reason for being. Yeah, that's why I'm so adamant about keeping subluxation in our verbiage on a regular basis.
It's funny,
and adjustment, right?
And adjustment, not manipulation, but adjustment.
Well, I have a new acquaintance who's a DO, and she manipulates, and she's fascinated with the terminology that I use, and the specificity in which I do things, which is, when I think about those three things, if you lose me, I'll jump back on. But if I think about those three things, as if I think about the science and the art, they can be used by other practitioners, right? And call it DO, but the thing, or call it whatever they want. But our philosophy is our philosophy. It's ultimately what makes us unique. It really is. I mean, nobody else has our philosophy. But if you think about the major premise, Brad, that you were talking about, you know, let me think. The universal intelligence in all matter continues to give to it all of its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. That was probably spoken before Dee said it, you know, before BJ said it. I mean, I'm sure some other healing arts and religions used it, but the application of that to healthcare is truly ours. You know, I mean, I think it way before 1909, before, let me think now. I think it was the philosophy. I think that was 5, right? Volume 5. That's when BJ actually first started about talking about the triunity, or at least writing it, right?
Right.
You know, the mind, which he separated in 2 pieces, and the body and the transmission, and he called that what? Creation, transmission, expression. Ultimately, he called that the what did he call that? He called it the triunity, but he also called it something else. The philosophical truth or something. It'll come to me. But that's when he really, that's when he took that major premise, and at least as far as I'm concerned, and made it into what he called the big idea, right? The big idea. This is how you stay alive and healthy. This is the expression of life, right? Universal intelligence through matter, through expression. I'm sure they were talking about it before 1909, but I think that's when he actually nailed it down and called it the triunity. And he really actually thought all the healthcare professions were going to grab onto it and keep it and run with it. They still have it, right? I think half of our profession hasn't done that. I think the issue is nobody wanted to put creation in that process, you know. Nobody wants to put the maker or God or whatever you want to call it in that process.
In that statement, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's a huge problem with our profession. You know, if I look at truly successful, or what I can call truly successful chiropractors, that's the forefront of what they do. It is the forefront of what the three of us spoke about. You know, that universal force coming through the physiology by the efferents, you know, and being expressed through the body, and vice versa, the body taking it and out of, you know, I'm trying to think of it. Man, I am just struggling for words today.
Well, the evolution too of time and practice has been, we were so, right, it was rooted in first, we'll just say the beginning of the philosophy, and then the art, the application, the adjustment, right? And there wasn't a lot of science. All the science was premise, right? All the things that have borne out to be true, like Brad, you were saying, so many things have borne out. So then the evolution was the philosophy kept building, the art, you know, the racking of the spine was fairly crude for a long time. It was probably I don't know, Gonstead, some of those guys who started to get more specific with it, where the art was then matching the philosophy. If there's been a thrust in the last 25, 30 years, it has been the science, so that it's somewhat more science dominated, right? And that, which pushes philosophy down.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, in all seriousness, national philosophy was taught as history, right? It was presented to us as, you know, the history of chiropractic, not so much the philosophy. I was fortunate to have a major premise from my upbringing, right? That this is how it works. And then sort of drove me to then explore more of the philosophy after graduating. Like, well, there's more to this than I was taught, right? And keeping that with it. But science keeps pushing that down. And unfortunately, so many of our science people, I'll just use Carrick, and then a lot of these other people just push the philosophy down. So even these people doing again, pain to brain or whatever it is now, it's all about brain science, etc. They don't even care, they don't seem to care that much about or talk about the adjustment, linking that and or the art, the philosophy and or the art. It's all about, well, if you understand this brain, then just you use the integrator or the activator, use this. They're even drawing some of the hands-on stuff out of it.
You're going to cause a stroke.
Yeah, which, all that sort of stuff, because the science says don't use your hands. This machine is safer, right? And then ultimately, if you go with that, then everybody's going to use the machine, and there's no philosophy, right? It'll just be,
there's
no
intent,
art,
right?
Right? It's going to be AI and
yeah.
That'll make your head hurt, right, Brad?
Yes, it really does, because this is what drew me to chiropractic in the first place, was the above, down, inside out philosophy that the body's a self-healing organism. If we remove interference to whether it's trauma, chemicals, thoughts, environment, if you can remove that interference, and the body can express itself the way it's supposed to, and that's when health comes naturally.
Right.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to hear this, because Sam was saying that in the clinic he saw some functional neurology students doing their exercises in the clinic and never adjusting the patient.
Yep.
And then the funk neuro kids would say, you're giving innate too much credit. That's just so foreign to what we have. And and even though they teach philosophy of life, my cousin David was the head of philosophy there for decades. He just retired. But they're so incongruent in so many things they did. Like in their clinic, they use a PT EHR. So instead of spinal adjustments, they talk about CMT. That just is just incongruent to what we taught, what we were taught.
Again, then, so I was talking about this last night, that it should be the philosophy is included in all the science that you're learning. So, even I'll just use histology if you like, and you're talking about the cell and how it works and how they differentiate and whatever, there should be some mention of, this is universal intelligence, innate intelligence. This is the 33 print, whatever it might be, but at least included, even if it's a statement of, look at how magnificent this is and how this is well thought out. How could you not believe in a God? How could you not believe that then that universal intelligence and our piece of it, our innate, then works together to grow this beautiful, so whether it's histology or embryo or whatever it might be, do you think just happens? Right there, what is that spark of life? And then so it could be, as long as the instructor should have that included in it. But everybody says now, so many instructors, particularly national is probably the most offensive at it now, is they have MDs teaching all these courses, are very sciencey people. They're not going to, versus not so well, even myself, many of them were at least chiropractors teaching these subjects when I was there. So at least there was chiropractic thought in it, but you have to continue to keep merging that. Do you understand why we're doing this from a chiropractic perspective? And that's why I like Mike Hall, who's the neuro guy that I appreciate, because he still thinks that way, thinks about the application. Doesn't mean, hey, exercise is good. That's not chiropractic. Unless we incorporate it under the auspices of the chiropractic lifestyle. And here you're doing that exercise because this is going to support or enhance my adjustment, which is going to help you reconnect better, your brain, your body, everything, so that the outcome is better. But it is, that's a lot of energy in practice, because you're you have to keep putting that out there and build that momentum, and right, your your table talk efficient, but constantly connecting then to each patient, right?
Oh, wait. Let me, oh,
Is he back?
yeah. And here we go. Admit. There we go. I think that's happening now. It's interesting that you say that, and I lay the blame for that right at the feet of CCE.
Of course. He's
Sorry
back.
about that.
He's back. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. You were in the queue. I just didn't see it. So
Yeah, look, Doug, I'm at a friend's house that has Wi-Fi, and it's still tough down here. So I apologize.
well, it's a better picture now. So I can see the background. Before it was all blurry. So I think you got a better connection.
Good.
He and I were talking about how in school they don't link philosophy to the science.
No.
Because back in the day they had chiropractors teaching those sciences.
Every course, yeah.
But now CCE doesn't allow that because the DC degree is not considered a terminal degree. The MD or PhD is a terminal degree, and that's who they have to hire to get CCE accreditation.
Interesting.
And that's why it's important to be involved in the political process in chiropractic.
Yeah.
Because it was ignoring that allowed that to occur.
Right. Well, I always remember you, Brad, telling me, because I'm not a political animal, that if I didn't want to get involved, I needed to write a check.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay.
You did. And you
Yeah.
did. That's the thing. Trying to convince more philosophically oriented chiropractors to do that. It's like pulling teeth a lot of times. I spent a lot of frustrating weeks and months in chiropractic because I was trying to make sure that word of why our philosophy was so important came out. Taking x-rays. Right now, it is considered you only take x-rays for red flag issues. That if a person's over 70 years old, they've got a history of trauma, or they have a condition that might lead to a metastasis to the spine. That is the only acceptable reason to take x-rays, not for the biomechanical evaluation of the spine.
Yeah.
Whereas Deed and Don Harrison, this in fact has killed Don Harrison, when he was putting together the clinical application for the biomechanical evaluation of the spine. This was back when I was highly involved with the ICA. They put that out, and that's out there, but it's not embraced by the politically connected people in chiropractic. And those are the things that are real that we face. They're not excuses, but there are issues that have to be addressed if we're going to continue link the philosophy of chiropractic to the science of chiropractic, because there are those that don't want us to do that.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That's a good point, Brad. That there's a strong for it. Well, and it's probably a minority, like everything is currently. That's the vocal minority that's trying to destroy our country, our profession, all those aspects of it. But just within our profession, that they see a different direction of, I don't know if inclusion is the right word. Certainly that's part of it. But we were always better, to Mike's point, as outliers. And my dad used to say we would have been better off as a religion, because then we could have we'd have had more autonomy and freedom, and not ever been involved with insurance and all those things.
Less tax implications, right? Too.
Correct.
Interesting. Yeah.
I tell the story. I've told the story a number of times. I was representing the Virginia Society of Chiropractic at a COGSA convention many years ago. And there was a speaker from FCER, the old Foundation for Chiropractic Education and Research, was up there basically begging for money. He goes, we need more money to do more research and to, because that's going to advance the profession. And he gave this impassioned plea, and everybody stood up and gave him a standing ovation. I cornered him, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes later in the vendors hall. And I said, you know, you would garner more research dollars from the more conservative principal chiropractors if you would include research on whole body health and wellness and the effect of the adjustment on improving people's sense of well-being. And he looked at me very straight, didn't blink an eye, and said, insurance companies won't pay for it. As soon as he said that, he turned and walked away. That was his fault. Now, within 6 months, FCER went away because people were not funding it, and they were just doing back pain and headache studies. This was at the time when COGSA was having the clinical compass, where they were trying to come up with guidelines on how chiropractors should practice. And it was basically musculoskeletal, short-term pain relief chiropractic, and the rest was all BS. They said there was no research that justified it, so that it shouldn't happen. And pushing against that was just, again, frustrating as all hell. And but it still happens today. And this is
we've been pushing against it ever since, right?
Mhm.
Ever since it was instituted, right?
Well, it is difficult to get even our principled people behind with their checkbooks
Mhm.
Yeah.
behind things enough to start to fund enough studies to do that. And the people to lead it. It really is. I know Mike Hall sent, you're making me think, he sent me a email about it. He was like, because I asked, and he was like, well, you need about $20,000, and then you got to get, and he had it all, and he boom, 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 boom. But the first part was the money. You got to get the money, because then you can hook somebody up at Sherman or Life, probably the only two places to then do and start to do just boom, boom, right? Like 20,000 a year to start to get one study a year, and then more and more and more over time. So, but the other thing, a lot of the studies are out there. So even things about cervical, that they're not even ours. They're, medicine has done a lot on, I think it was, again, Mike Hall had, if it was in, might have been neurosurgery, but it was like they had the year of the cervical curve in that journal. I mean, so each month or each quarter, they had X amount of articles on the value of a proper cervical curve. I mean,
it's like anything else in the political arena. If they don't want it to exist, then they just don't look at it and don't want it to exist, right? And I'm chuckling because I had this thought. When I think about our profession, if we weren't so bloody good at getting people not pain-free, if we weren't so good at getting people first pain-free and then absolutely improving their health and their well-being and letting them do things that they couldn't do years before, if we weren't so good at that, if our philosophy wasn't so sound and so clean and so clear, we wouldn't have been as successful as we were, and we wouldn't have been pushed to the point where patients were saying, our insurance should pay for this. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It pushed us to it, and then that's the thing that to date for me has held us back so much.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's when people talk about, oh, chiropractic isn't for pain or whatever, the peril for the profession is the adjustment feels so darn wonderful and helps with that. And to your point, Mike, that then because of that, even if it's short-term care, whatever that looks like, people are having miracles of healing. And oh, my blood pressure went down. My skin is clear. I'm thinking better. My vision returned, whatever it might be. And they came in for neck pain or an auto accident or whatever it might be. That's the stuff that has kept the profession going. Is, oh, by the way, it works on that, but this is what it's really doing.
This is what it's doing. Yeah.
That's what's keeping the profession alive, even with
Yeah.
all the people who don't believe it.
No
Right?
question. Yeah. And the word I was looking for a little while ago in terms of the normal simple cycle or the safety pin cycle, but it wasn't used there. It was used in the larger complete cycle, was ideation. I don't know if you guys ever looked at all the steps to the cycle. And that's my favorite word in that. And that was the word I was looking for. Ideation is this crazy body's ability to take in everything, every sensation, whether we know it or not, internally and externally, all the forces that are brought to us. But at ideation and all that information, that's where this thing really happens. It's between the efferent and the afferent, where universal intelligence talks to innate intelligence and gets the mind to be able to express what it needs to do to the matter, so that we can, the word's adapt, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the word is adapt.
Yeah.
Because that's health, is the abilities to adapt. That's life, is our physical body's ability to adapt, but only using the 100% absolute right information coming from innate intelligence or universal intelligence.
Yeah, that's important, because
Yeah.
I still, Don Harrison, to bring you back, Brad, you mentioned him. Somebody at one of his seminars, Don had a picture of a phase 2 degenerative spine up, and somebody yelled out, well, that's adaptation.
Yeah, right.
And Don Harrison turned around and he said, yeah, but it's pathology.
It's
wrong.
maladaptive.
Yeah.
So
it's
not
adaptation without good information, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That, Mike, that is a great point. That is 100%. Because all kinds of things, this posture is adaptation, but the outcome isn't good. It's bad information. It's not clear.
Maladaptation, right? Like dis-ease, right?
What's interesting is you were talking about how the idea of ideation.
Yeah.
That's how wonderful the brain is. All those bits of stimuli that the body and the brain receives, it's able to filter out what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
And that's makes it even more incredible. All these hundreds of thousands of pieces of information we get every minute. Our body knows how to use that. Our brain knows how to use that and adapt as best it can. Sometimes it is maladaptation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key right there, man. That's the key to why we've been so successful. That's the key to why chiropractors are seeing 1,000 people a week, and some are only seeing 120 a week. They might be great. They might have great hands. They might know the science, but they're not taking that idea of the triunity and applying it to, I don't want to say healthcare because that sounds so simple, but to healthy living, to thriving, right?
Correct.
That's the step that doesn't happen. And I don't, I take somebody like guys I've coached through the years, and they can talk philosophy. I think they understand it, but then when they go to the office, it's not applicable. So we can talk philosophy, we can sit around a fire, we can discuss it, we can argue it, and it could be a great conversation. But unless you carry that back to your practice and apply it, you know, and I don't know what that chink is. It's like, okay, I know some people don't know the philosophy, and then I know some people are unwilling to discuss it and know it, and then some people just don't believe it. I don't know how to fix that in between, right? You think you do, but
people are afraid. And
remember,
no, they're afraid. They're afraid because nobody's told them it's okay to be who they are in their practice.
Exactly.
So I think all of us go through that sometimes we think we have to wear a different uniform, so to speak, or be a different person in our practice, but it's really clear if you're sharing your experience, right? You're actually sharing your own subluxations. Oops.
Right.
with the group. So
Now,
awesome.
Lisa said this to me yesterday. And I mean, she says stuff to me all the time because we're always talking, like the three of us are talking. She said that exactly to your point, what you're saying, T, is that she was speaking about my uncle and how when he went up on stage to speak, he didn't have a suit on, he didn't have a tie on, he had a tracksuit on, or something. He went up there as himself, expressing himself, right? He wasn't afraid to do that. Where a lot, you see guys come up in suits and ties or whatever, and most of the day they spend in jeans and t-shirts, right? That's what we should do in our office. Go in your office as yourself, like you were saying, T, and talk about what you believe. And let, what, people are going to accept you more when you do that than when you become fraudulent, right? That's a harsh word, but that's essentially what you're doing when you go in and you pretending to be somebody else. And I think patients, at least society and our population, when they come in and they're looking to get healthy, they ferret that out, man. They know.
Absolutely.
They know.
You'll attract those kind of people to your practice too. I mean, practice growth doesn't come to you, it comes through you.
Right.
And when you were talking, like, the first thing that's popped into my mind with FCB, faith, confidence, and belief.
Mm-hmm.
That's why so many chiropractors struggle. They don't have faith, confidence, and belief in chiropractic.
Yeah, I know.
They're looking for something outside themselves, outside their office, that is going to bring people to the office and stay under care. But if they're authentic, like you are alluded to, then they're going to draw those people that are supposed to be naturally right. And some will, some won't. So what? Move on to the next.
Yeah. Cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to really find out what students are thinking, right? I mean, Brad, your son's in it, but I'm not exactly clear on what question to ask them. But it would be curious if enough of them watched even this 45 minutes or however long this is and gave any feedback that they had of, where they see themselves at, where they see it going,
Mm-hmm.
how are they going to serve more people, how are they going to do it for 35 or 40 years, that sort of stuff. Because that's the other part. What will sustain you if you don't have, we talk about mission and purpose, but that it's, combined with science, art, philosophy, something that's you go in and you have a reason to deliver at the office or to show up every day, right? Legitimately every day. Trying to get more of that out of them.
That's going to be easily done, because I can just take this file and send it over to Sam, and he can share it with his friends and get feedback. You're okay with that?
Absolutely. I'd be very interested to hear their feedback, or I don't want to be a guy who's just pontificating to them, and as opposed to even updating our perspective of, okay, I understand that. Have you thought of it this way? Because that's what experience and knowledge and practical time should lend to them, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, well, because what the way we lived was based upon the foundation and the bedrock of, let's call them the OGs, the guys that came before us. And we need to do that for these young guys too. We need to take what they have to say, what's new, and make it applicable using the foundations that we have. That's the only way we're going to move forward. It's the only way it's going to happen. And fortunately, the three of us have decided to do this monthly, and we've decided that we're going to put some stuff out in between these monthly calls. I don't want this to turn into a Joe Rogan 2.5 hour, podcast, because people aren't going to watch it. But we're going to do this. We're going to put this out, whether it be, at 9-minute increments or 4 or 45 minutes. But that's the whole purpose for this, right? Twofold.
Exactly.
Correct.
It was for the three of us to do what we say we were going to do, and that's stay involved and participate, continue to participate in chiropractic and the philosophy, but more than that, be available to give some sound
Give
advice
back. Give back.
in
right?
every in every aspect, right? Whether it be family, children, practice, whatever, right?
Physical health,
Physical health, you know.
mental health.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I still
So
say that not that and not everything was perfect. Everything didn't go perfect. It wasn't. Here I am. It's just great. Everything was great. Blah 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 blah.
Blah
You
blah
know,
blah. Yeah,
whatever.
look,
Yeah.
look.
No,
The
that's not
Zoom
true.
called it. The Zoom called it and go perfect, but nobody got upset about it, right?
Exactly.
So cool.
Reminds me of a joke.
Finish
Old
with that.
cow and a young cow standing up on top of the hill,
Oh,
looking down at
no.
the base of the hill.
Yep.
You guys know the punchline.
I do know the punchline.
Yes, we do.
There
We're
you
the
go.
old cows, man.
We're
We
the
know the
old
right
cows.
things to do.
Let's
Exactly.
walk down
Yeah.
there and
All
Have
right.
away.
I love you
All right.
guys.
I love you guys too.
Love you too.
We'll
man.
talk before next call, and you know, if either one of you guys wants to grab your phone and put a 2-minute thing out, send it to me, and then I'll start pushing this stuff forward.
Sounds great.
Perfect. That was my only question. I will do those and send them to you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Well,
Mike.
you figure out the platform you want to do it on, we'll do it. And if we need to pay
Well,
for the Dropbox, that's not a problem.
it's not that expensive, but you know, we've got the Facebook thing is ready to go. The Instagram is right behind it, and we'll figure it out after that. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Very
All
good.
All right,
thanks.
guys.
Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right. Now do I end this?